Syrian regime took control of the strategic northwestern crossroads town of Saraqib in the latest game of a weeks-long offensive against the country's last major rebel bastion of Idlib. Advance came shortly after Turkey sent additional troops into the region and threatened to respond if any of its military observation posts in Idlib, set up under a 2018 truce, and come under attack. The violence has killed more than 300 civilians and sent some 586,000 fleeing civilians onto the roads seeking relative safety near the Turkish border. Lebanon's President Michel Aoun said that the foreign states, particularly France, had expressed a desire to help his country emerge from a severe economic crisis. As Lebanon grappled with its worst economic and financial strains in decades, foreign donors have said they will only help if the government enacts long-stalled reforms. Aoun said he had a phone call with French President Emmanuel Macron, and the two would speak again in the next few days. The Suez Canal General Authority implemented a set of precautionary measures to protect it from the novel coronavirus. The authority distributed pamphlets on the virus symptoms and preventive measures at its main facilities and hospitals. It also assigned a team to contact ships crossing the waterway and explain the measures ensuring their implementation. Egypt stressed the importance of carefully dealing with vessels that were previously reported of carrying suspected cases among their crew members through coordination with the Quarantine Department of the Health Ministry, after taking necessary measures such as conducting a full medical exam of the crew. Egyptian Premier Mustafa Madbouli has considered the population growth the greatest challenge faced by the state, stressing that its control has become a national security issue. He held more than one party and the whole community responsible for handling this phenomenon. According to Egypt's Central Agency for Public Mobilization and Statistics, the country's population has amounted to 99.8 million in January. The Belgian government will submit a request to the judiciary to overturn a decision binding it to provide the necessary aid to repatriate 10 IS children from Syria. Belgian Foreign Minister Philip Goffen announced that before the parliament has explained that the required documents are available at the Belgian consulate in Erbil, but there are 3 obstacles to bringing the children back. He explained that Kurdish officials refuse to hand over the children without the guardians, and some of the IS militants' widows refuse to hand over their children. The French military said French and Malian forces have conducted operations that killed at least 30 extremists in Africa's Sahel region in recent days. This came amid stepped-up efforts to combat militant groups in the area. Earlier this week, 2 French commando operations killed about 10 militants in the border zone where extremist groups including IS in the Grand Sahara operate. U.S. aviation investigators have arrived at the site of a plane crash in Istanbul that left 3 Turkish citizens dead. A team from aircraft manufacturer Boeing and the U.S. Civil Aviation Authority inspected the wreckage of the Pegasus Airlines Boeing 737 that skidded off a runway at Sabiha Airport on Wednesday evening during strong winds and heavy rain. A report on the crash, in which 180 passengers and crew members were injured, is expected in a month's time. A Russian delegation proposed to Turkey a new version of the 2018 Sochi Agreement, which stipulates a ceasefire between the regime and opposition factions in the de-escalation zone of Syria's Idlib province. The Russian amendments include the drawing of new lines in the area and the separation of moderate factions from the extremists in northwestern Syria. The Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov reiterated that his country would do whatever is needed to stop a humanitarian catastrophe in Syria's northwest. The Iraqi Human Rights Commission said that nearly 550 Iraqis have been killed in protest-related violence since unprecedented anti-government demonstrations erupted in the capital and southern cities in October. The Commission has since repeatedly complained that authorities declined its requests for information on deaths, injuries, and arrests. The commission, which is government-funded but operates independently, became the only source for death tolls until it too faced pressure last year to stop reporting. Canadian lawyers who previously successfully sued Iran are now seeking to take action again on behalf of victims aboard the Ukrainian plane shot down over Tehran last month, looking for at least $1.1 billion in compensation. Tehran earlier admitted its missiles downed the Ukrainian airliner by mistake on January 8th, which killed all 176 people aboard, including 57 Canadians. The lawsuit was filed against Iran, its supreme leader, the elite Revolutionary Guards, and others as defendants. It alleges that the downing of the plane was an intentional and deliberate act of terrorism. Millions in the Indian capital voted in a key regional election, with the exit polls suggesting a big defeat for right-wing Prime Minister Narendra Modi. An average of 9 exit polls showed Kejriwal's party was likely to win 52 out of 70 seats. Thousands of extra security officers were on duty for the election, with a large contingent at 5 polling stations near the Shaheen Bagh protest. The death toll from the novel coronavirus outbreak soared to 722 in China, including the first foreign victim, as Hong Kong imposed a mandatory quarantine on mainland arrivals to block the spread of an epidemic that has caused global panic. Nearly 35,000 people have been infected by the new strain, which is believed to have emerged in a market selling wild animals in Wuhan last year before spreading across China. The epidemic has prompted the government to lock down cities home to tens of millions of people as anger mounts over its handling of the crisis, especially after a whistleblowing doctor fell victim to the virus. U.S. President Donald Trump fired 2 of the highest-profile witnesses in his impeachment probe, sparking accusations that he is on a campaign of revenge. Trump recalled his ambassador to the European Union, Jordan Sandland, just hours after Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman, a decorated soldier who worked at the National Security Council, was ordered out of the White House. The firings came 2 days after the Republican-majority Senate acquitted Trump of charges that he abused his office, and 1 day after the gave a victory speech branding his opponents as evil. Tunisia fired its ambassador to the UN, accusing him of failing to consult the foreign ministry on key issues that diplomatic sources said included Washington's controversial Middle East peace plan. Diplomatic sources said that Ambassador Monsef Bati, who has occupied a seat at the UN Security Council since the start of the year, had gone further than President Kais Saied wanted in his criticism of US President Donald Trump's long-delayed peace plan. A veteran diplomat, Bati was in retirement last year when he was asked to return to active duty and represent Tunisia at the United Nations. Dozens of terrified shoppers were evacuated from a Thai mall as armed police said they had taken control of the ground floor of the complex from a gunman who killed at least 20 people. But authorities did not give any firm details on the whereabouts of the attacker. There were fears the shooter could try to hide amongst the panicked crowds. Hyundai Motor has teased all the new i20, indicating that it will feature a completely new design and that it will be the first car in Europe to carry Hyundai's new design language, Sensuous Sportiness. Sensuous Sportiness is characterized by the harmony between 4 fundamental elements: proportion, architecture, styling, and technology. The purpose of this design direction is to bring instinctive beauty to Hyundai vehicles, creating emotional value and giving them a distinctive look.